The night sky over the alien city was not dark. Strange neon lights burned in the air, glowing like fireflies trapped in glass. Ships hummed above the narrow streets and voices of many species filled the market. It was not a market of food, not a market of clothes. It was a market of lives. Humans were rare here. Most who came never returned. But he walked carefully, his hood low, his eyes sharp. He had been in dark places before, and he knew how to blend into shadows. His name was not important to the crowd. To them, he was only another trader. But inside his chest burned with anger. He hated this place. He hated the chains. At the center of the market, the cages stood. Iron bars, glowing locks, and eyes staring out from the darkness. Some eyes were dull, broken. Some were still bright with fight. He walked past slowly as if he did not care. But he saw everything. Then he stopped. In one of the smaller cages, hidden at the corner, sat a child. Not human. Skin pale blue, eyes glowing faint silver like moonlight. Small hands gripped the bars, weak but steady. The child looked no more than 10 years old in human years. Yet there was something different. Something heavy, as if the air itself changed around him. The guard at the cage spat and laughed. Worthless little thing. No one will buy it. Too small, too weak. The man's jaw tightened. He could walk away. He should walk away. But his feet did not move. The child's eyes lifted and locked with his. There was no fear in them. No begging. Only a quiet question, will you? His heart gave the answer before his mouth did. He stepped closer. How much? He asked, his voice calm. The guard squinted. For this useless brat? 50 credits. Waste of money if you ask me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small chip. 30. Take it or leave it. The guard frowned, but greed was stronger than pride. He snatched the chip and unlocked the cage. The child blinked as if unsure it was real. The man held out his hand. Come. The child hesitated, then stepped forward. Small, cold fingers touched his. For a moment, something sharp cut through his mind. A flash of stars, fire, and screaming voices. Then it was gone. The man shook his head. No time for questions. But the guards around the market had already noticed. Slaves were not supposed to be bought so quietly. A man freeing a child was not normal. Whispers rose. Someone pointed. Then the alarm sounded. A deep red light flashed across the market. Sirens wailed like hungry beasts. Stop him, a voice roared. He's stealing property. The man cursed under his breath. He pulled the child close and ran. The streets twisted like a maze. Stalls toppled as he shoved past. The child stumbled, but he lifted him into his arms. Behind them, heavy boots pounded the ground. Blaster fire lit the walls with sudden blue sparks. The man darted into a narrow alley. Smoke rose from broken machines. He pressed his back to the wall, breathing hard. The child's eyes glowed brighter now, reflecting the light. They will kill us, the child whispered, voice soft, strange. Not if I move faster, the man said. His eyes scanned the alley. A shadow fell across them. A guard had found the way. His weapon rose, ready to fire. Before the man could act, the child lifted a hand. Just a flicker, just a spark. But the air cracked like lightning. The guard screamed as his weapon exploded in his hands. He fell unconscious, smoke rising from his armor. The man froze. He stared at the child. The child looked back, face pale. I did not mean to, he whispered. The man shook himself. No time come. They moved again, deeper into the maze of alleys. The alarm still rang. Voices shouted from every corner. The man knew what he had done. He had not bought a slave. He had stolen a secret. And secrets in this city never stayed hidden for long. But he also knew one thing. He could not turn back now. The child was free. And freedom always came with a price. The sound of the alarm followed them like a predator. Red lights painted every wall and shadows twisted like claws. He ran with the child in his arms, his heart hammering. The city was alive now, alive against him. Above, small drones zipped through the air, beams of light cutting across the alleys, hunting for movement. Soldiers shouted orders. Doors slammed shut. The market had become a trap. He ducked behind a broken machine, lowering the child for a moment. Stay low. Stay quiet, he whispered. The child nodded. His glowing eyes shimmered faintly, like a candle flame in the dark. The man's hands trembled as he checked his belt. A small knife, 2 energy capsules. Not much against an army. Boots echoed nearby. A patrol was closing in. He pulled the child into the shadows. The guards walked past, their armor gleaming, weapons ready. The man held his breath. The child clutched his sleeve, fingers cold but steady. The soldiers stopped. One turned, scanning the alley. The light beam passed just inches from their faces. The man tightened his grip on the knife, ready to strike. But then a shout came from another street. The soldiers ran toward it, their footsteps fading. The man let out the air he was holding. "We can't stay here, move." They slipped deeper into the city, weaving through narrow passages. The child's small feet made no sound, but the man could hear the fear in his breathing. The farther they went, the stranger the city became. Wires hung like vines, leaking sparks. Towers bent at angles that seemed wrong to human eyes. The man remembered his first time here. He had thought the city was alive. Now running through its veins, he felt that thought might be true. Suddenly a drone appeared at the corner. Its red eye blinked as it scanned them. "Run!" he hissed. They sprinted, the drone whirring after them. It fired a flash of light, striking the wall, leaving a smoking hole. The man grabbed a loose pipe and swung hard. Sparks flew as the drone crashed to the ground, but the noise gave them away. More voices rose. More footsteps followed. They reached an open square, empty except for a fountain at the center, spraying greenish water. Around the square, doors were sealed, shutters locked. Everyone was hiding from the chase. Everyone except the hunters. From 3 alleys, soldiers marched in. Their rifles hummed. The man cursed. They were trapped. He pulled the knife, useless against guns, but better than nothing. He pushed the child behind him. The leader of the soldiers stepped forward. His helmet shone and his voice was cold. "Give us the creature, human. Leave now and you live. Resist and you both die." The man's hand shook. He knew he could not win, but he also knew he would not give up. Before he could answer, the child stepped out. His small figure stood in the green glow of the fountain. His silver eyes blazed. "No," the man whispered, trying to pull him back. The child raised his hand. The air in the square trembled. A low hum grew like thunder hiding in the ground. The soldiers froze, uncertain. Then, with a sound like breaking glass, light burst from the child's palm. The fountain exploded, water spraying like rain. Energy shot across the square, knocking soldiers to the ground. Their weapons sparked and died. The man shielded his face, stunned. When the light faded, the child fell to his knees, shaking, drained. The soldiers groaned, trying to rise. The man did not waste the chance. He grabbed the child, lifted him, and ran through the smoke. They stumbled into another alley, lungs burning. The child's head rested on his shoulder, weak but alive. "You shouldn't have done that," the man muttered. The child's voice was faint. "They would have killed you." The man's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, but he could not. Instead, he kept moving. Hours seemed to pass as they crawled through the city's underbelly. Metal tunnels dripped with water. Rats with too many legs hissed from the shadows. The man pushed forward step by step until the sounds of pursuit grew distant. Finally, they reached a small chamber lit by a single broken lamp. The man lowered the child onto a crate. He pulled off his hood, sweat running down his face. The child looked at him, silver eyes still glowing faintly. "Why do you help me? You don't even know me." The man sat back, wiping his knife clean. His voice was rough. "I don't need to know you. I just know chains when I see them, and I can't walk away from that." The child was silent for a moment. Then he whispered, "You are not like the others." Before the man could reply, the broken lamp flickered. Somewhere above, heavy engines roared. The city had not given up the hunt. The man clenched his jaw. "Rest now. Tomorrow we find a way out. But tonight we survive." The child nodded weakly, curling into himself. The man stayed awake, knife in hand, eyes fixed on the shadows. The city slept, but he knew the nightmare was only beginning. The night was long. The man did not sleep. His back rested against the cold wall of the chamber, his knife still in his hand. Every sound in the tunnels kept his eyes open. Dripping water, distant footsteps, the hum of engines above. The city was hunting them, and he knew rest was a dangerous luxury. The child stirred on the crate, turning from side to side. His breathing was uneven. Once he cried out softly in a language the man did not know. The sound was sharp, full of fear, but then it faded, replaced by quiet murmurs. The man looked at him, and for the first time, he saw how fragile the child was. He looked like any child might after a long night. Thin, pale, too small for the weight of the world pressing on him. Yet there was something more, something heavy and unseen. Power. The memory of the fountain still burned in the man's eyes. That light, that explosion. No ordinary child could do that. The man sighed, setting the knife on his lap. He pulled out a ration bar from his pack and broke it in half. When the child's eyes opened again, the man held it out. "Eat, you need strength." The child sat up slowly, blinking. His silver eyes glowed faintly, dimmer now but still strange. He looked at the food, then at the man. Finally, he reached out and took it. He ate in small bites, silent at first, but when he finished, he whispered, "Thank you." The man nodded. "You're welcome." For a while there was only the sound of dripping water. Then the child asked, "Why did you save me?" The question was soft, but it carried weight. The man leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "I don't know. Maybe because I've seen chains before. On myself, on others. I couldn't stand to see them on you." The child tilted his head. "Chains?" The man pulled back his sleeve. A faded scar wrapped around his wrist, the mark of old shackles. "Once I was not free either. Someone broke my chains. I never forgot." The child traced the scar with his eyes but said nothing. After a long silence, he whispered, "They took me from my home. I don't know how long ago. The days feel endless here." His voice shook, but he kept speaking. "I thought I would die in that cage." The man's chest tightened. He wanted to promise safety, but promises in this world were dangerous. Instead, he said, "Not while I'm here." The child's lips trembled, but then he nodded as if that answer was enough. Later, when the man thought the child was asleep, a small voice broke the silence again. "Do you have a name?" The man hesitated. Names carried power, and he rarely shared his. Finally, he said, "Call me Jarek." The child whispered it like a secret. "Jarek, and you?" Jarek asked. The child lowered his head. "They called me nothing. Only creature or slave. My real name. It has not been spoken for so long." Jarek's eyes softened. "Then tell it to me. Let it live again." The child hesitated, then whispered, "Erin." Jarek repeated it, steady and firm. "Erin, a name worth keeping." For the first time, a small smile touched the child's face. It was faint, fragile, but it was real. The bond began there, in that cold chamber beneath the city. But the world outside had not forgotten them. The lamp above flickered, and the sound of metal grinding echoed through the tunnel. Jarek rose at once, knife in hand. He motioned for Erin to stay behind him. A shadow moved at the edge of the chamber. A rat, but larger, its teeth long, eyes glowing red. It hissed, crawling toward them. Jarek stepped forward and drove his knife into its throat before it could leap. Blood hissed against the metal floor. Erin shivered. "The city is alive with monsters." "Yes," Jarek muttered, pulling his blade free. "And not all of them wear armor." When silence returned, Jarek sat again, wiping his knife clean. Erin's small hands trembled, but he lifted his chin. "I am not afraid." Jarek looked at him, tired but proud. "You are brave. But it is all right to be afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward despite it." The boy thought about those words for a long time. Then he asked, "Will you take me home, Jarek?" Jarek froze. He had no map, no idea where this child's home was. He only knew the weight of the task. But when he saw the hope in Erin's silver eyes, he could not say no. "I'll try," he said simply. Erin smiled again, a little stronger this time. He leaned against Jarek's side, his small body warm despite the cold. Within moments, he was asleep again. Jarek sat there, knife in hand, listening to the city breathe above them. He did not know what dangers tomorrow would bring. But he knew one truth. He had made a promise. And promises once given bound him tighter than chains ever could. As the broken lamp buzzed, Jarek whispered into the darkness, "Rest, Erin. Tomorrow, we fight for your freedom. Together." And somewhere in the distance, the engines of the hunters grew louder. The first fight. The tunnels never slept. Pipes groaned. Rusted doors banged from the wind of passing engines above. Jarek walked with quiet steps, Erin close behind him, their shadows stretching against the damp walls. They had stayed hidden long enough. Jarek knew soldiers were sweeping the Undercity now, moving closer every hour. If they stayed still, they would be found. If they moved, they might have a chance. But chance was thin in a city built on chains. Erin clutched the edge of Jarek's cloak. "Where are we going?" "Out," Jarek said. His voice was steady, but his mind raced. He needed a ship, any ship. Without one, the city would swallow them whole. They passed through an old maintenance shaft. The metal floor shook with every step, threatening to collapse into the black water below. Erin walked carefully, his small feet making barely a sound. Halfway across, Jarek froze. He raised a hand, signaling silence. Erin stopped, eyes wide. From the shadows ahead came the sound of boots. Not one, but many. The glow of rifles lit the dark. Jarek cursed under his breath. They had been found. The soldiers stepped into view. 6 of them armored in black, helmets hiding their faces. Their leader's voice echoed, sharp and cold. "End of the line, human. Give us the child." Erin shrank behind Jarek, his small hands trembling. Jarek pulled his knife, but he knew it was a fool's weapon against rifles. Still, his body was tense, ready to fight. "Step aside," the leader ordered. "We only want the creature." Jarek's eyes narrowed. "He has a name, Erin," the leader laughed. "Names don't matter in chains." The first shot came without warning. A beam of blue fire scorched the floor beside Jarek's feet. He leapt sideways, pulling Erin down with him. Sparks flew as the metal shook. The soldiers advanced. Jarek threw a shard of broken pipe, striking one in the helmet. It barely slowed him. Another beam seared past, close enough to burn Jarek's arm. He hissed but held his ground. He lunged forward, knife flashing. The blade pierced a soldier's neck joint and the man fell with a strangled cry. Jarek ripped the weapon from his hands, firing wildly to force the others back. "Run!" he shouted to Erin. Erin stumbled but obeyed, dashing toward a side tunnel. Jarek fought to cover him, but 3 rifles turned his way. Bolts of light burned the air around him. He dove behind a rusted pillar, heart pounding. "Don't let them escape," the leader roared. Jarek peeked from cover, firing the stolen rifle. 2 soldiers dropped, smoke rising from their armor. But the leader was still standing, and his shots tore holes into the pillar. Erin's voice echoed from the tunnel. "Jarek." He turned and saw a soldier rushing the child. Jarek's chest clenched. He broke from cover, sprinting, but he was too far. The soldier raised his weapon. Then it happened. Erin screamed, his silver eyes blazing. The air cracked. A wave of energy burst from his small frame, invisible but powerful. The soldier flew backward, slamming into the wall with a sickening crash. His weapon shattered in sparks. For a heartbeat, the tunnel was silent. Jarek reached Erin, grabbing his shoulders. The boy's face was pale, his body shaking. I couldn't stop it," he whispered. "You saved us," Jarek said firmly, though his own heart was thundering. He looked into the boy's glowing eyes. "Don't fear it. Control it," but their fight was not over. The leader was still standing. He leveled his rifle, rage burning in his voice. "You have no idea what that creature is. But you'll both die before you find out." Jarek shoved Erin behind him and charged. The leader fired, the beam grazing Jarek's side, but pain only fueled him. He slammed into the armored man, knocking the rifle aside. They grappled, fists striking metal and flesh. The leader was strong, but Jarek was desperate. With a roar, he drove his knife into the man's chest joint. The leader gasped, his weapon falling. Jarek pushed harder until the man collapsed, armor clattering against the floor. Silence fell again. The fight was over. Jarek stood over the bodies, chest heaving, blood soaking his side. He turned to Erin, who was still shaking, his eyes dim now from exhaustion. "You're hurt," Erin whispered. Jarek wiped blood from his mouth and forced a grin. "I've been hurt worse." The boy stepped closer, small hands hovering near the wound as if he wanted to help but didn't know how. "I don't want you to die." Jarek's eyes softened. He knelt, putting a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Then we keep moving, together. That's how we survive." Erin nodded, though fear still clung to his face. They gathered what weapons and supplies they could from the fallen soldiers. Jarek strapped one rifle to his back and checked the tunnel ahead. The path was long and the city would not forgive their victory. As they walked, Jarek's mind turned over the fight. Erin's power was not just rare, it was dangerous both to others and to himself. And now after this battle, the whole city would know. But as Erin walked beside him, small and determined, Jarek knew one thing. He would not let the boy fall back into chains. Even if it meant fighting the whole world. The city howled in the distance, alarms still ringing. The hunt was not finished, but neither were they. Together they moved forward toward danger, toward hope, toward whatever waited in the dark. The journey home. The city had tried to hold them, but they had broken free. Smoke rose from behind as Jarek and Erin slipped into the outer docks. The air here was colder, filled with the sharp smell of fuel and metal. Great ships stood like beasts in chains, engines humming softly, waiting for masters who would never free them. Jarek kept his hood low. Erin walked close, his silver eyes hidden under a scrap of cloth. The boy was small enough to pass for a trader's servant, but Jarek knew the soldiers were still searching. One wrong glance and their lives would end. He scanned the rows of ships. Some were too large, guarded by armed crews. Others were too broken, missing wings or fuel cells. They needed something fast, small, and hidden. At the far end of the dock, he found it, an old cargo shuttle scarred with rust, but its core still glowed faintly. It had been left alone, forgotten. To Jarek, it was perfect. "Stay here," he whispered to Erin. He slipped into the shadows, pried open the hatch, and climbed inside. The controls were dusty, wires exposed, but the system blinked alive under his touch. The ship was old, yes, but alive enough to fly. He hurried back to the hatch. "Come." Erin climbed inside, eyes wide. "Will it take us to my home?" Jarek paused, fingers running across the console. "If I know where it is, yes." "Tell me, Erin, where is your home?" The boy's face softened as if he were remembering something far away. A world of blue skies and silver rivers, mountains that shine under two suns. My people live there, if they are still alive. Jarek listened, his jaw tight. It was no map, only a dream. But he nodded. "Then we'll find it." He powered the engines. The shuttle trembled, coughing smoke, but then it steadied. Lights blinked green. The ship wanted to fly again. Alarms wailed in the dock. Soldiers had spotted them. "Hold on," Jarek muttered, slamming the throttle. The shuttle roared, lifting from the ground. Weapons fire burst from the platforms, blue beams slashing past. Erin cried out, gripping the seat. Jarek pulled the controls hard, weaving between fire. The ship scraped against a tower, sparks raining, but it did not fall. Then the engines screamed and they shot into the sky. The city shrank below, its twisted towers fading into shadow. Above them, stars spread wide, endless and cold. For the first time since he had seen the child in chains, Jarek allowed himself to breathe, but peace was brief. Erin leaned against the glass, his silver eyes glowing brighter. "They will follow us," he whispered. Jarek nodded. "They always do." He set the course away from the city toward deep space. The shuttle creaked, its old body protesting, but the engines held. The stars stretched into lines as they jumped into faster speed. Inside, silence fell again, broken only by the hum of the ship. Jarek leaned back, checking the wound on his side. It was raw but closing. He pulled a strip of cloth and wrapped it tight. Erin watched him. "Why do you keep fighting even when you are hurt?" Jarek met his gaze. "Because if I stop, you don't get home." "And I promised." The boy was quiet for a moment. Then he whispered, "No one has ever promised me anything before." Something heavy stirred in Jarek's chest, but he pushed it aside. He could not afford to feel too much. Not yet, the ship beeped. A warning flashed across the console. "Tracking signal detected," Jarek cursed. They marked the shuttle. Almost at once, the stars flickered behind them. A shadow appeared, a warship black and massive, its guns glowing like fire. Erin's hands gripped the seat. "They found us!" Jarek slammed the controls. The shuttle darted, spinning away from the first blast. Energy tore across space, shaking the ship like a leaf. Warning lights screamed red. He gritted his teeth. "This ship isn't built for fighting. We have to outfly them." The chase began. The shuttle dived through asteroid fields, rocks spinning like blades. The warship followed, tearing boulders apart with its cannons. Jarek twisted through narrow gaps, sweat running down his face, every move one step from death. Erin closed his eyes, hands shaking. "We cannot win." "Not by fighting," Jarek growled, "but maybe by surviving." He spotted a gap in the asteroids, a storm of gas and lightning, a nebula known by smugglers as the grave of ships. No sane pilot entered it. But sanity had never saved him before. "Hold tight," Jarek shouted, diving into the storm. Lightning tore across the hull. Gas burned around them. The warship followed but slowed, wary of the storm. The shuttle shook violently, alarms shrieking. Jarek pulled every ounce of power into the engines. The shuttle groaned but obeyed, slipping deeper into the storm until the warship was only a shadow far behind. At last, silence returned. The storm faded. The stars opened again. Erin's eyes blinked open. "We're alive?" Jarek gave a small, tired smile. "For now." The boy leaned back, exhausted. His silver glow dimmed, but his voice was steady. One step closer to home, Jarek looked out at the endless stars. He didn't know where that home was, or how many battles still waited. But he knew one truth. He would not stop until the boy was safe. The journey had begun, and the galaxy itself seemed ready to fight them, but Jarek was ready too. The truth, the storm of the nebula had faded, but its memory lingered inside the old shuttle. Sparks hissed from broken panels. The hull groaned as if every bolt wanted to give up. Yet somehow the ship still moved forward, cutting through the dark sea of stars. Jarek sat at the controls, his hands steady despite the red burns on his arms. He had flown through storms before, but never with a child at his side. He glanced at Erin, who sat curled in the co-pilot's seat, silver eyes staring out the window. The boy looked tired, but his gaze was far away, as if he could see beyond the stars themselves. "You did well back there," Jarek said. His voice was rough but softer than usual. Erin did not answer right away. When he spoke, his tone was quiet. "They will not stop. Not until I am back in chains. You know that, don't you?" Jarek gave a small grunt. "I figured as much, but why?" "You're just a child." The boy turned his silver eyes toward him. There was no fear in them now, only something heavier. "That is what you think," Jarek frowned. "Explain." For a long moment, Erin was silent. The ship hummed, stars drifting by. Then the boy whispered words that felt older than his voice. "I am not only a child. I am the last of a line. My people call me Aylan, the star heir." The title hung in the air like a blade. Jarek's hands froze on the controls. "Heir?" Erin nodded slowly. "My family ruled our world for many generations. Not with cruelty, but with peace. My people believe I was born with the light of the stars inside me. It is not power I wanted, but it is what I carry." Jarek's jaw tightened. He remembered the fountain, the explosion of energy, the way soldiers had fallen like paper in a storm. "That light, it's you." "Yes," Erin whispered. "It is me. It is why they hunted me. If they control me, they control my people. If they kill me, hope dies with me." Silence filled the cockpit. Jarek stared at the endless stars, his mind heavy. He had thought he was saving one child. Now he realized he had stolen a crown, a key to an entire world's future. Erin's voice trembled. "Do you regret saving me?" Jarek looked at him sharply. "No, never." His voice was firm, almost angry. "Chains are chains, no matter who wears them. You deserved freedom before I knew your name, and you deserve it now." The boy blinked, surprise softening his face. For the first time, he let out a small breath that sounded almost like relief. But Jarek leaned closer, his eyes hard. "It does mean the road is worse than I thought. Every hunter in this galaxy will want you now, and if I fail, I don't just lose you. I lose everything you stand for." "I know," Erin said. "That is why I must be strong. Stronger than I feel." The boy's small hands clenched. The silver glow in his eyes brightened, faint sparks dancing across his fingertips. He tried to hold it, control it, but the light flickered wildly, then dimmed again. Jarek reached over, steadying the boy's hands. "Easy. You don't need to burn the stars right now. Control comes with time." Erin's eyes met his. "Time we may not have." Before Jarek could answer, the console beeped. A red light flashed, proximity alert. He slammed the controls, pulling the shuttle off course. Out of the dark, another ship appeared. Smaller than the warship, but faster, sleeker. Its black hull glistened like a blade, scouts, Jarek muttered. "They found us." The ship fired. Blue beams sliced across space, one striking the shuttle's wing. The hull screamed. Alarms flared. Erin gripped the seat. "We cannot escape again." Jarek's eyes narrowed. "Then we fight smarter." He twisted the shuttle into a spin, darting between asteroids that glittered like knives. The scout ship followed, its weapons sharp and precise. Jarek fired back, but the old guns barely worked, spitting weak bursts of light. The scout closed in. One more shot and they would be ash. Then Erin stood. His small hands pressed against the glass, his silver eyes blazing. "I will not go back." The ship trembled. Light surged from Erin's body. Not wild this time, but focused. It shot outward, striking the enemy vessel. For a moment, the scout ship froze, its engines sputtering, its weapons dying in silence. Then, like a candle in the wind, it drifted powerless. Jarek stared, stunned. Erin collapsed back into the seat, gasping for breath, his glow fading. The silence was broken only by the soft hum of the shuttle. Jarek steadied his breathing, eyes on the boy. "You're stronger than you think," he said quietly. Erin shook his head. "I'm also more dangerous. If I lose control." I could destroy you too. Jarek leaned forward, his voice low and steady. Listen to me. I don't care if you're a king, a weapon, or a star reborn. You're a Rin, and I will see you home. For the first time since they left the city, the boy's eyes softened with trust. Beyond the glass, the stars stretched wide, silent witnesses to the truth revealed. But in the distance, unseen by them, more shadows moved. The warship was not gone. It was waiting. The final test. The old shuttle drifted in silence, stars glowing cold beyond the cracked glass. Yarek's hands rested on the controls, steady but tired. His eyes never left the radar, where a shadow grew larger with every passing second. The warship had returned. It loomed out of the darkness, black as stone, its size filling the sky. Rows of cannons lined its body, glowing with deadly light. This was no scout, no patrol. This was the hunter itself, the same monster that had chased them from the city. Jarek cursed under his breath. They won't stop. Not until you're theirs. Aaron sat beside him, his small frame shaking, but his silver eyes were calm. Then we make our stand. Jarek glanced at him sharply. You're just a boy. I am more than that, Aaron said softly. His voice was steady, older than his years. And you know it. The warship's voice boomed across the comm, metallic and cruel. Human, surrender the star heir. Hand him over and we might let you live. Jarek spat on the floor. Tell your masters this, I don't give children to chains. The channel cut. The warship's guns flared. Bolts of fire tore across space. Jarek pulled the shuttle into a dive, the engines screaming. Explosions lit the void, shaking the hull. Panels burst, sparks rained. Hold on. Jarek shouted, fighting the controls. The shuttle darted between blasts, but it was too small, too weak. The warship was a predator, and they were prey. One good shot, and it would be over. Erin gripped the seat, his silver glow flickering. We cannot outrun them. Then we buy time, Jarek growled, spinning the shuttle through an asteroid field. Rocks slammed against the hull, but they gave cover. The warship fired again, blowing asteroids to dust. Inside the cockpit, alarms screamed. Warning lights burned red. Yarek's breath came hard. This ship won't last. Erin's gaze lifted, shining brighter now. Then I must. Jarek turned to him. No, you'll burn yourself out. You're not ready. The boy's voice was quiet, but it carried power. If I do nothing, we both die. If I try, maybe we live. The ship shook again. Another blast tore a wing. Jarek slammed his fist on the console, fury burning in his eyes. He wanted to argue, to keep the boy safe. But deep down he knew the truth. The fight was no longer his alone. He grabbed Erin's shoulders, staring into his glowing eyes. Listen to me. Don't lose yourself. Whatever happens, stay you. Stay Erin, the boy nodded. I will try. He stood, small hands pressing against the glass. His silver eyes blazed brighter than ever before. Light spread from his body, filling the cabin with warmth. The ship itself seemed to tremble under his power. Outside, the warship charged its main cannon, a beam of pure energy glowing at its core. Erin raised his arms. His voice was no longer that of a frightened child. It was clear, strong, and filled with the weight of stars. I am not your slave. The light exploded. A wave of silver energy burst from the shuttle, rippling across space. Asteroids shattered into dust. The warship's cannons sparked, dying in silence. The great ship trembled, its engines faltering under the force. Jarek shielded his eyes, watching in awe. The boy was no longer small, no longer fragile. He was a storm wrapped in flesh, the air of light his people had whispered about. But the power burned him. Erin's body shook, his voice breaking. I can't. Hold. Jarek rushed forward, grabbing him. Enough, you've done it. Stop before it takes you too. The boy collapsed into his arms, the glow fading, but the damage was done. The warship drifted powerless, its weapons dead, its engines silent. They had won. For a long moment, only silence filled the cockpit. Jarek held Erin close, feeling the boy's weak breath against his chest. You saved us, he whispered. Erin's eyes fluttered open, dim but steady. We saved each other. Jarek gave a rough laugh, though his throat was tight. That we did. The shuttle limped forward, its engines flickering. Beyond the wreck of the warship, a cluster of stars glowed brighter than the rest. Erin lifted a weak hand, pointing. My home, he whispered. It lies beyond those stars. Jarek followed his gaze, his jaw firm. Then that's where we're going. The boy smiled faintly and closed his eyes, finally resting. Jarek turned back to the controls. The ship was battered, the journey ahead long, but his path was clear. He had set out to free a child. Now he carried the hope of a people. As the shuttle drifted toward the distant light, Jarek whispered into the void, "No chains will touch him again, not while I breathe." And with that vow, the hunter became the shield, the fugitive became the guardian, and the journey home truly began.